Is Chris Hipkins mentally fit to run for office again? I have very serious reservations as to whether he is able to make political decisions in the best interests of New Zealand and Kiwis across the board. Putting aside his election bluster and babble, that's general elections for you. Look deeper into the Labour Party's political agenda, along with their preferred coalition partners, the Greens and Te Pāti Māori. What do they all have in common? The New Zealand Green Party are nothing more than a diverse rainbow cult pushing a sexual agenda, disguised as caring for the planet and climate change. Take a hard look at the two co-leaders, Marma Davidson and her white cis men comment, and James Shaw with question marks hanging over what are his actual academic qualifications and possible related hocus pocus. Te Pāti Māori are unquestionably pushing a racist and apartheid agenda, with a touch or two of rainbow intersex thrown in for good luck. There's hardly a basic element of truth uttered out of the mouths of their co-leaders. They live in a racist apartheid fantasy land. And what has the woke far-left Labour ideology been pushing for the past few years, initially instigated by Miss Ardern? Primarily racism, apartheid and rainbow transgenderism. So there's little wonder that the New Zealand Green Party and Te Pāti Māori are a match made in heaven for Chris Hipkins' coalition of chaos. But it gets even worse. Recall the recent violent Posey Parker demonstration episode in New Zealand a few months ago? Posey Parker was assaulted by a biological man pretending to be a woman, known as a trans woman, who threw tomato sauce all over Posey. That issue is being heard in court soon, probably later this month. Also, apparently, according to various news outlets, this biological man, aka pretend woman, sent via the internet several obscene and vulgar pictures of his penis to Posey Parker after she had returned to the UK. Posey is often described in the woke, left-bent mainstream media as an anti-trans woman activist, but that is totally incorrect. She's anti a trans woman being called a woman, and then being allowed to infiltrate women's and girls' safe spaces in sports. Posey Parker is in fact standing up for women's rights and girls' rights, not to mention also standing up for parents who don't want their children being abused at school by being forcibly indoctrinated with rainbow gender bender identity sexual garbage. It's 100% correct scientific fact that a trans woman is not a woman. A trans woman is still a biological man, and Posey Parker is 100% correct when she says a trans woman is not a woman. Posey Parker is in fact someone who should be admired and protected. Now, back to Chris Hipkins and why I don't think he's mentally fit to run for office again or mentally fit to discharge his duty of care for all New Zealanders. Last month, Chris Hipkins was interviewed by Gay Express for Your Ex, a New Zealand LGBTQ magazine, and he made the following comments. We are seeing in New Zealand elements of the protest movements, the Posey Parker type stuff, coming from abroad, and that is something we need to guard against here. The best thing we can do in these circumstances is to make sure that we convey our disagreement, and I support people who are expressing their disagreement with her views. That activist comment alone could easily be interpreted by some radicals as a direct call to incite violence. Care needs to be exercised, especially by politicians, in the comments they portray to the public. This type of verbose utterance is appalling from someone who purports to be the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Hipkins also finds the views of Posey Parker abhorrent. Watch this short clip.
You described that you thought some of Posey Parker's views were abhorrent. Could you tell us which ones?
I think some of the views being conveyed around the transgender community, some of the sentiment.
Her views.
Yes, some of the sentiment that she's expressed towards the transgender community is abhorrent in my view. Well, that they shouldn't exist.
This is greatly disturbing because in essence what Hipkins is effectively saying is that he finds protecting women's and girls' rights as abhorrent, and that he supports the tiny minority of people who would prefer to abuse women and children, including school kids. I rest my case. Is the caretaker Prime Minister Chris Hipkins a mentally fit and proper person capable of unbiasedly discharging his political duties, or should he be kicked out of Parliament and kicked out of the New Zealand Labour Party for good? You're the jury. Roll on Saturday, the 14th of October, 2023. Thank you for listening. WhangareiTim.